Welcome back to the Tide Dream Hanger. This is Mike, and today I want to talk to you about toxicity in the Transformers community. Now, I'm part of a lot of different groups, and I'm involved in some forums. I don't really comment as much, more of a silent observer. But one thing I've been hearing for years is other communities believe the Transformer community is the most toxic of all the collector communities out there. I've heard stuff like it's brutal to be in those groups. Now, I'm part of a lot of those groups, kind of know what they're saying. I don't 100% agree with it, but I'm going to tell you what my findings are and why the perception is this way. Coming up. So I'm going to break this down into 4 different categories.
And the categories:
KO, third party, different eras, groups and forums. I like to take KO for 200. What is, I just bought the same figure for a quarter of what you paid for it, or a third of what you paid for it, and is twice as good. There's no doubt that the KO debate is something that rages in our community all the time. There are people that buy the official masterpiece when it comes out. And of course, you're spending a lot of money. You're spending a lot of money on that Takara figure, and lately we've had some issues like breakage on some of these very expensive figures. But when it comes down to it, when somebody spends that much money on something, and whether they're deriving joy out of it or not, they do want to defend that purchase. I understand that entirely. But when it comes down to it, there's always the people that didn't want to spend the money and are looking for any reason to hate on it. So there was a debate when MP44 came out. We saw a community divided, and it was every time this figure was brought up, there were 2 ends of the spectrum. I love it, it looks great. I hate it, it looks terrible. Transform Element is better, yeah. That's what everybody was saying. Those were the 2 sides of it. And I could see how people on the outside of the community would consider that toxic. That kind of discussion, a toxic discussion. But it boils down to 2 things: price and quality. No doubt that Takara makes a great figure, excellent figure. It looks wonderful. The transformations are very intuitive and intelligent. They're really good transformations. Just maybe some material, not the best choice. And the sad part about it is the KOs, since they have absolutely no design budget, they're stealing the design. Well, those companies can make some improvements and put a little bit of money into making the figures better. And of course, they do come out a lot cheaper. Who would really want to buy the KO at the same price as the official, right? And at this point, we've seen pretty much everything Takara's made get knocked off. Now, I will admit, I made a video saying that the end of KOs, and during that time frame, we saw a drought of KOs, and they came back completely revamped, different packaging, and, well, it gave KO companies actually an excuse to be a whole lot cheaper, which they are now. So the KOs aren't always better, which people try to say they are. But for me personally, if it wasn't for KOs, I wouldn't even be this deep into Masterpiece. I felt like those mini bots, well, they're really car bots, but 6-inch figures in the Masterpiece line feel like mini bots. But I felt like $60 was too much for them when they started coming out in 2012 or something like that. They started making this new, smaller 6-inch car, and I thought that was way too much for these figures. And if it wasn't for KOs, I would have never been introduced to them. The debate today still rages on. So, do you support Takara, who makes the design? Do you support the KO companies that are basically stealing the design? I, for one, buy both for my own personal reasons, but I do understand supporting the company making these designs. Now, the prices are getting out of control. Ridiculously out of control. The average collector, it's pushing them out of the market. I understand that. But what we see in the community is a lot of negative toxicity discussions. Well, I don't see it so much in my comments, though. I see it in forums. I see it in all this. We're going to get into that coming up. So that leads me into, I guess I'll pick third party for 300. What is more options than I know what to do with? Here's the thing. There are more third-party companies in the Transformers community than any other one of these communities. So when you look at this, there are, at one point in time, 100 different names of companies. I know that there are really 4 big players and a lot of small players that have been involved with them and broke off from them, and it kind of worked out like that. But in the end, there were 100 different names of companies at one point in time making third-party Masterpiece Transformers. And when you think about it, so many decisions in these other collector realms don't have that option. Like the Star Wars community has options for SH Figuarts and a couple of others, but really there's not as many to choose from. So you could get a third party and pay way more and get a little more than you would out of the Black Series in the Star Wars community. And every single community has a little bit of third party going on, but nothing like the Transformers community. With all of these options comes a big debate. Everybody wanting to defend their purchase or whichever one they like the most. You know, I stand on the side of I know which one I think I'll like the most, or I'll get several and pick. But in the end, if I just picked one, I would probably be happy with it. I know there's a lot of people out there that are like that. But there's really no need for all the toxic back and forth about this version sucks because of this, and you're stupid because of this. Those kinds of conversations are counterintuitive, irrelevant, and do not foster an environment of inclusion. I think somebody should be able to enjoy their open and play every bit as much as someone enjoys their fans' toy, without having to dog each other out. So we've recently seen the release of Fans Toys Sheridan. Fans Toys Sheridan, I think, is a good figure. Does not truly match the dumpy look of the animation, and some people try to say Bad Cubes matches the animation better. Maybe that's true. I know the animation is different depending on the still that you pick and the frame that you're looking at, but it's all up to you. If you like your Bad Cube, then good for you. If you like the Fans Toys, good for you. And if you like Final Victory version, then that's fine also. But I saw a lot of people being real negative about this release, and a lot of negative conversations about this. And I could see other people thinking, what a toxic community if that's how you guys have your exchanges about toys, about figures. I mean, come on, we're talking about these action figures. It's not a personal vendetta against each other. If you like one, then you like it. See, I personally am not a huge fan of the Bad Cube. When I own it, I have it because it was the only option at the time. I don't plan on really getting rid of it or anything, but the thing is, I like Fans Toys more. We also see some sort of debates going on about, well, what's better, Zeta or Fans Toys? And of course, that debate's been going on for a while. I have been discussing it on my channel also, but I do want to point out the fact that Zeta is a much lower price point. Zeta is not going to look as good in individual bot modes. We all know that. And people that have already bought Zeta like myself, I plan on keeping that one in a combined mode. There's a reason for both. But for a lot of people, they're only picking one. And when you pick one, I mean, that's the one you're going with. You're going to defend it. There's really no reason to make it personal. Let's pick different eras for 400. What is Beast Machines? No, really, what is Beast Machines? Now, there are so many different eras of Transformers, and this causes a lot of exchanges and discussions and brings about some negativity and some hostility. And I'm going to put it out there that I personally am more into G1 than anything, but I have had a more open mind over the last couple of years and actually embracing some Beast Wars and getting into other things other than just G1 myself. Now, but I'm still a huge G1er. I get a lot of comments in my section, and sometimes it gets a little bit negative about I'm too much into the G1. Well, that's what I like the most. I understand that. I understand that if Beast Machines was your introduction to Transformers, you're going to have a place for that in your heart that I won't. Same goes for Transformers Cybertron and that whole era itself. A lot of great things happened in the Prime series, all of the Transformers Prime that was going on there. A lot of people have a lot of great memories from that series. And of course, the biggest rift in the community is between the Bayverse stuff and the non-Bayverse stuff. That's really the biggest rift. There is so much between all of these different eras that there's something for everybody. I know that what the Michael Bay movies did for the Transformers franchise was take it mainstream. It went from, I really did feel like I was kind of an underground collector, collecting on the down low, and really enjoyed it. Didn't care much for the Bayverse designs myself. Now I have a bunch of the stuff, but I didn't care for them when it came out. And here's the thing. It's now mainstream, and a big part of it is because of the Bayverse movies. And so I understand that, and I also understand that there's a lot of collectors that it reignited the fun of collecting for them to get into it because of the movie. Now I've cracked some jokes at other eras of the fandom, and I try to be fun and lighthearted about it, but I do see that even some of my jokes and some of the things that I've said in the past could have been perceived as toxic, as creating a toxic environment. I don't know if you've noticed over the last few months, I've tried to shift that quite a bit in all of my videos and all the content that I create. Let's go ahead and take Facebook groups and forums for 500. Now I think I counted 30 something groups that I am personally in the Facebook groups, and I have a lot of fun in there. For the most part, the vast majority of the Facebook groups are positive. There's a lot of great information, a wealth of information, a wealth of knowledge, and then people pass news around. But there are a handful of groups that are extremely toxic. And you know which ones those are. I'm sure you know which ones those are. Those are the groups where if somebody posts something, they have an opinion, or they like something, they believe something, there's always a handful of people in those groups bashing them. And the worst part is, some of these groups, it's the admins causing it. Now, I felt like, well, I need to be the knight in shining armor, and I need to come in and help these people and say something like, hey, I kind of agree with this guy says, I don't think y'all should be bashing him, this kind of stuff. I realized it was a waste of time, because the very next day, the exact same thing happened to somebody else, talking about something else. And one thing you don't know, or may not know, about Facebook groups is they could sell advertisements in their pages. And the amount of money that you could charge is based on the amount of members that you have, and there's a lot to it. Traffic through your page. And with that, it is my belief that some of these pages create false drama just to get people to go see what's going on. You know what these pages are. They have all these GIFs, emotes, emojis, or whatever of their favorite laughing at you or got you kind of emote or GIF or whatever that is. That kind of nonsense. They got that, right at a moment's touch to make fun of you with. Obviously, that's not the group you want to be in. I actually was talking with a guy that makes $3,000 a month off of his advertisement, off of his Facebook group, and it kind of blew my mind how easy it is to make money in a Facebook group once you've got it established. And you want to just keep getting more members, and you want to get people to go there. Well, drama sells, right? I just turn off notifications and stay away from those kinds of groups. Next up, we've got the forums. Now, TFW 2005 is probably the biggest Transformers forum out there, and every time I'm looking into something, hey, I'm curious about this, curious about that, I find myself getting pushed into an old forum, especially when you're looking at third-party stuff, in TFW 2005. Great resource, an absolutely wonderful resource, but occasionally I find some sort of exchange in the forum, and like, how are you talking about Transformers, right? And it turns into calling each other's names and those kinds of things, and that's crazy. Now, I have nothing against the administrators of the TFW 2005 forum. It's so huge, I don't know how you could police every single exchange and on there. I don't know how you could. That's a huge job. But with that, I just think it's crazy. Like, we ourselves should police ourselves and not act like that. We are mostly grown adults, right? I mean, on this channel, grown adults, and no reason for all that stuff. So what's the community going to look like going forward? Are we going to put a stop to that kind of crazy, toxic environment? Do you not see toxicity in your groups? Do you see it way too much and would like to avoid it? Well, it's up to all of us to shut it down, one post at a time. Like, subscribe, share in the comments how you feel. Titanium Hanger out.